scholarship, consultancy, and outreach programs. The philosophy of the university. Kibabii University embodies the view that science, technology, and innovation are critical for sustainable utilization of material and human resources for the prosperity of the universe. The university has several faculties, 5 in number. We have the Faculty of Education and Social Sciences, which is the largest. We have the Faculty of Science, School of Business and Economics. We have the School of Nursing, just to mention a few. I want to invite my co-MC, Dr. Laura Catherine Mamuli, to take us up from there as we wait for the guest of honor in order to start the official function. Ladies and gentlemen, this beautiful lady, allow me to introduce to you my co-MC, Dr. Laura Catherine Mamuli from Kibabii University. Welcome.
Thank you for MC, Dr. Singoro. Dr. Laura Catherine Mamuli from the School of Business and Economics. I'm the host today, and we are co-hosting with Dr. Singoro. I'm here to welcome you to the 5th International Conference at Kibabii University. And we're yet to start, but we are preparing to start in the next few minutes. Kibabii University is located in Bungoma County, just 9 kilometers away from Bungoma. And here we want to start running the program for the day. We want to start running the program for the day. And Kibabii University's vision is to be a global, dynamic university of excellence in science, technology, and innovation. And the mission is to achieve excellence in generation, transmission, and enhancement of new knowledge in science, technology, and innovation through quality teaching, research, training, scholarship, consultancy, and outreach programs. The philosophy of Kibabii University is that it embodies the view that science, technology, and innovation are critical for sustainable utilization of material and human resources for the prosperity of the universe. And Kibabii University have 5 faculties and schools. It has 2 faculties. One is Faculty of Education and Social Sciences, and the second one is Faculty of Science and then 3 schools. We have School of Business and Economics, where I belong, and then School of Computing and Informatics, and School of Graduate Studies. The faculties and schools offer programs ranging from certificate, diploma, bachelor's, master's, and doctors of philosophy. Under the Faculty of Education, I want to list the programs that are offered under the Faculty of Education. We have the Doctor of Philosophy in Religion, and then Doctor of Philosophy in Curriculum and Instruction. We have Doctor of Philosophy in Education, Management and Planning. And then for Master's Program in Faculty of Education and Social Sciences, we have Master of Education in Curriculum and Instruction, then Master of Education in Educational Management and Policy Studies, Master of Education in Educational Planning and Management, Master of Arts in Religion, and Master of Arts in History, and Master of Education in Kiswahili. Postgraduate diploma program, we also have one running in the Faculty of Education, and then the bachelor's programs that are offered under the Faculty of Education are Bachelor of Education Arts and Bachelor of Education Science. We have Bachelor of Journalism, and then we have Bachelor of Criminology, and then we have Bachelor of Social Work, Bachelor of Education, and Early Childhood Education, among others. Under the School of Business and Economics, we have the following master's programs that are currently running. Master of Business in Administration, with the following options. We have the accounting option, finance option, risk management option, marketing option, operations management, strategic management, and entrepreneurship. Then we also have a Master of Science in Human Resource Management. Then lastly, we have Master of Business Administration with IT. The bachelor's programs that run under the School of Business and Economics are as follows: the Bachelor of Commerce, Bachelor of Business Management, Bachelor of Science in Cooperative Management. This is the new kid on the block. And then we have Diploma in Business Management and Certificate program. Faculty of Science has the following bachelor's programs, and they have the following degree programs. The first one is Doctor of Philosophy in Applied Mathematics, and then Doctor of Philosophy in Pure Mathematics, Doctor of Philosophy in Physics, Masters of Science in Physics, and then Master of Science in Applied Mathematics, Master of Science in Pure Mathematics, Master of Science in Statistics, Master of Science in Organic Chemistry, and then the bachelor's programs follow that: Bachelor of Science in Mathematics, and then Bachelor of Science in Chemistry, Bachelor of Science in Physics, among other programs. Then the School of Computing and Informatics, they run the following programs. They have the Doctor of Philosophy in Information Technology, Master of Science in Information Technology, Master of Science in Computer Science, Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, Bachelor of Science in Information Technology, and then Diploma in IT and Certificate in IT programs. The application procedures into these programs is on the Kibabii website, www.kibabii.ac.ke. Then duly application forms and normal instructions are on the website on how the applications are supposed to be made. Welcome to Kibabii University. Welcome to the 5th International Conference. I'm co-hosting with Dr. Brian Singoro from the School of Business. So the program today, we are going to have delegates logging in. We know that you have already logged in. We're just waiting for some more delegates to log in. And then we have the opening meeting where we shall have the keynote address by the guest speaker. And then the key addresses and sub-themes, we shall break into different rooms where we shall have the different sub-themes. So the sub-themes for today are as follows: universal healthcare, that is SDG 3, which is about the good health and well-being. And then we have the sub-theme 2, which is about the food nutrition security, that covers SDG 2 on zero hunger. And then sub-theme 3 is about enhancing manufacturing. It's covered under SDG 12, which covers responsible consumption and production. So we have our scholars that have prepared papers in these areas, and we should rest assured that whatever information that we're going to receive today is going to have a positive ripple effect on all of us. So the link and password to the virtual meeting has been shared. It has been shared to you. Kindly, if you're paid up, you should also get in touch with our secretariat so that they update their lists. Our prayer today, this day 1, Tuesday, 15th June 2021, we're going to have an opening ceremony that's going to begin shortly. The prayers will be said by Dr. Mtai, and then the welcoming remarks will be given by the Deputy Vice Chancellor, PPRI, Professor Dr. Engineer Benedict Mutua, and then the Vice Chancellor's remarks will follow. And our Vice Chancellor is Professor Isaac Ipara Odeo. Then he shall welcome the Chairman of Council, who will also give his remarks. That is Dr. Ernest Mwangi Njoroge. And then the chief guest address and official opening will be done by Dr. Mukisa Kitui. The plenary session will be covered by Professor Abonyo, and it will take 30 minutes. So our guests, I'm here to welcome you all to the 5th International Conference, to Kibabii University's 5th International Conference. You are most welcome to this conference. My co-host kindly. Okay, paper presentations under sub-theme 4, paper presentations under sub-theme 4. We shall have affordable housing. Affordable housing is covered under SDG 11, that is sustainable cities and communities. The chair of session will be Dr. B. Quach, and the rapporteur shall be Mr. Stephen Ogalo. So the first paper that we shall listen in this boardroom shall be construction under sub-theme 4, shall be construction technology as a solution to affordable housing for all in Kenya. And this paper shall be presented by Dr. Peter N. Hakina. Then it will be followed by a paper on effect of COVID on household income and affordability of housing in Nakuru East and Nakuru West sub-counties, Nakuru County, Kenya. This one shall be presented by Stella Cherais Purir, and then followed by a paper presented by Dr. Umuher Ali on cities and COVID-19, that is global lessons for planning and development. Then the last paper to be presented under sub-theme 4 shall be presented by Dr. Paul Obino on African higher education leadership in advancing innovation for development ahead. Then theme one today covers universal healthcare. It covers universal healthcare. This is under SDG 3, that is on good health and well-being. The chair of session shall be Dr. Jane Cabo, and the rapporteur will be Ms. Grace Olwenyi. The first paper under this session, under this sub-theme, shall be presented by Dr. Kelonye Festus on preparedness and response to the health impacts of climate change in Kenya. And then the second paper shall be presented by Fidelis Soloi Ndombera on COVID-19 diagnosis, that is going beyond PCR tests using nanostring chemistry and technology. Then the third paper that we shall listen to today will be presented by Evelyn Kareji Amadi on treatment of typhoid and pneumonia, that is alternative herbal medicine. The next paper shall be on structure and bioactivity optimization of active natural analogs through semisynthesis as a principal drug discovery approach, a case study of Polygonum senegalese calcons, and it will be presented by Evans Okemwa Kenanda. And the next paper again shall be presented by Dr. Peter Hakina on alternative medicine as a preventive measure against disease that have no cure. That is a case study of use of herbal medicine in Bungoma County. I'm sure this paper can be applied in all the counties within the country and even internationally. The next paper shall be presented by Dr. Leonita Makusa Makila on factors that are associated with resilient outcomes in the individuals exposed to COVID-19 adversity. That is a systematic review. And then we shall have the next one on estimation of the presence of COVID-19 in a population using an efficient group testing model, that will be presented by Sirengo Luka. Then we shall have a question and answer method, a question and answer session, which shall take around 40 minutes. Then thereafter, we shall have a health break, after which we shall have the next session chaired by Dr. Edwin Masibo, and the rapporteur shall be Dr. Patrick Owoche. The papers to be presented in this next session for sub-theme 1 will be lessons from modeling COVID, scenarios in Kenya and containment implications. This one shall be presented by Nation Juma Adero, which will be followed by Ruth Naisie Mwangi, who will be presenting a paper on the intervention strategies employed by LTs and parents of stuttering children in Nairobi, Kenya. After which it shall be another paper will be presented by Mukongo DM on personalized genomics. Is this the current era in tackling pandemics among developing nations in the post-genomics era? Then we shall have to sit and listen to that and really have a lot of learning to be done today. The next paper shall be presented by Ndiritu Jamesa, and it will be on absorption of P-nitrophenol from model aqueous solutions using raw and quaternized pills. And then the next paper shall be presented by Mercy Mauki on a qualitative study of the effects of digital technology on children's development and health during COVID-19 pandemic. And this is a case study, a case of selected places in Nairobi and Kiambu counties in Kenya. Then Dr. Ofula Robert will present a paper on influence of career choice on mental well-being among high school students in Bungoma County, Kenya. This is very timely, very applicable at this particular time when students are choosing professional courses to be pursued at the university level. And then after that, we shall have Eliakim Otieno Ogenga, who will present a paper on effects of moderate exercise on symptoms associated with COVID-19. Then we shall have another paper on comparative analysis of indoor air pollution in rural urban areas in Kilifi County, Kenya, presented by Caroline Adema Limo. Then lastly, we shall have a paper presented by Professor Barak Abonyo on efficacy of lung surfactant on COVID-19 induced respiratory distress syndrome. So guests, as you listen to me talking about the program of today and the papers to be presented today, you realize that they are timely, and in fact, learning is a continuous activity. So today, kindly sit pretty and be ready to receive new information by our scholars who have gone out and carried out research and have decided to share their findings in this conference. Subteam two, we shall have food, nutrition, and security, which is covered under SDG 2 on zero hunger. This one shall be chaired by Dr. K. Nyende, and the rapporteur shall be Ms. Charles Nduku. And then the papers to be presented, the academic papers to be presented under this sub-theme. Number one, we shall have a paper presented by Oduor Brian Omondi on evaluation of stream flow response to agricultural land expansion for Tiba River watershed, Kenya, followed by Dr. Francis M. Maingi, who will be talking about potassium buffering capacities, yield response modeling, and effect of potassium dosage on vegetative parameters of potatoes grown in subsistence farming of Molo, Kenya. Then next we shall have Dekra M. Nyangena, who will be presenting a paper on preparation and characterization of cassava starch, edible coating blended with clove basil, essential oils for preservation of fruits. Next, we shall have Dr. Peter Hakina, who will also be presenting a paper on the effect of post-harvest losses to food security, a case study of farming in Bungoma County, and this shall also be applicable to all the farmers within Kenya and outside Kenya. Then we shall have James Ngelenzi Munyoki, who will be presenting to us a paper on improving carbon dioxide concentration, growth and yield of tomato using fresh organic manure and agronet cover. After which we shall have the paper presented by Waswa Stanislaus Juma on responses of free tomato varieties to root knot nematodes. Then lastly, we shall have a paper presented by Samson Wanyonyi on application of mixture processing variables in modeling the yield of glycine max, Merrill within an optimal split plot design. Then we shall have a question and answer session. These plenary sessions are good for all of us, are good for our consumption, because whatever will not have understood shall be clarified by the presenters of the session. The question and answer session shall take another 30 minutes, and then there'll be a health break of 10 minutes. And then the next session will be chaired by Dr. Lucy Chikamai, and the rapporteur shall be Christine Namai. And the papers to be presented under this session are as follows. The first paper, academic paper, will be presented by Dr. Martha Konje on the impact of climate change on forage production and pastoralism in a succulent Karo arid rangeland, South Africa, followed by Bernard Karinda, who will be talking about phenotypic screening and evaluation of common bean genotypes for resistance to pathogen in Western Kenya. Then the next paper will be presented by Lucy N. Karanja on totophenolic and flavonoid content and bacterial activity on unripe fruit extracts. Then the next paper will be presented by David Miregwa. David Miregwa should be our student here at Kibabii University. He'll be talking about potential of avocado seed in the increase of household nutrition and income generation in Western Kenya. Then we have 3 more papers. The next one will be complexion equilibrium studies onto entelectidamine, quaternite, and procarpus heterophyllus seeds from aqueous solution. And then Juma will be presenting a paper on forecast based on action for lightning and thunderstorms for humanitarian action in Kenya. Those who reside in Western Kenya, I think they have come across a lot, they have experienced a lot of thunderstorms. So here is a paper that will be answering some of the concerns. And then the last paper presented under this session will be presented by Frida Depleti, and it will be on achieving zero hunger in Kenya, and logistic management practices for enhancing operational efficiency of the Agriculture and Food Authority. So meeting B will close at 12:50 hours. Then sub-team 3, just to remind you on what we're expecting, sub-team 3 shall be chaired by Professor Samuel Mbugwa, and the rapporteur will be Ms. Rose Kapuha. Under this sub-team 3, we'll be talking about enhancing manufacturing, which is covered under SDG 12, responsible consumption and production. The first research paper to be presented will be done by Shehu MD on mathematical model of groundwater management in Bida Basin, Niger State, Nigeria. And then the second presenter will be Teresia Mungai, and she'll present a paper on remote data center management system. Conrad Wanyama will follow on natural radioactivity hazardous levels in tailings at Rosterman Gold Mine, Western Kenya. Rosterman is in Kakamega County. And then the next presenter will be Fred Gichana Atandi, Dr. Fred Gichana Atandi. He'll be presenting a paper on our adoption of ICT innovations during the post-COVID-19 new normal, followed by Jeremiah Onunga, who will be talking about digital technology access and use among socially and economically disadvantaged groups in Turkana County, Kenya. Dr. Andanje Mlambula will follow with a paper on estimation of volatility using European logistic type Brownian motion when asset price is discontinuous. Then Dr. Hakina will present on applying zero fossil energy development principles in construction of houses to solve lockdown challenges. The second last research paper to be presented under sub-team 3 will be on convergence of compact operators whose norms are agent values. This one will be presented by Julia Ndonga Owino. Then the last paper for the session, which will be done at 11:10 to 11:20 hours, will be presented by Walter Ogutu Amula, and he'll be talking about the challenges in conducting web-based surveys during COVID-19 pandemic, evidence from a non-probability survey in parts of Kenya. This again will be followed by a plenary session. Plenary session is where we are supposed to air our concerns, our remarks, our additions, our positive critics, so that the papers or whatever the presenters would have given to us is better comprehended. So the meeting will close at 11:40 hours under sub-team 3. Then just as a synopsis of what's going to happen under sub-team 5, we shall have the cost-cutting issues. And then these cost-cutting issues, the chair of session shall be Professor Julius Mayo, and then the rapporteur will be Dr. Sylvia Sirai. The papers, the total number of papers to be presented under here, we shall have 6 papers, and the first one will be presented by Anthony Mabele. He'll be talking about the factors influencing students' choice to major in biological and agricultural sciences in Kenya. This is also key, since even the teachers, we are having a shortage in teachers of biology and agriculture. Then the next paper will be presented by Edwin Adama Ombasa. He'll be talking about influence of pedagogy on effective teaching and learning in Kenyan universities. And then the next paper will be presented by Dr. Patrick Owoche. It will be on doctoral virtual supervisory meeting, engagement, optimization strategies. The next paper shall be presented by Connie Okwisa Mogaka, and it will be on relationship between goal setting and performance of city primary schools in Kenya, followed by Mamati Barasa Godlipas, who will talk about the use of personal computing devices for self-directed learning in public universities in Kenya, and he'll be talking about the drivers and challenges. One thing you should note, guys, is that these are cross-cutting issues. So the last paper under that session will be presented by Vincent Odhiambo Oduor, and it will be on finding peace and resilience in the middle of a debilitating global pandemic, the stabilizing and restorative propensity of the visual genre of music. So the session will end at 11:10 with a plenary session again. And after that, we shall have a health break. Then the next session will start at 11:20, and the chair of session will be Dr. Christine Nabwire, and the rapporteur will be Ms. Nelly Masai. The first presenter under this particular session will be will be Wambe Kimweli Marakia. Wambe Kimweli Marakia will be talking about social, economic, and technology effect of coronavirus pandemic response on education in Kenya. Then Dr. Ben Nyongesa will be talking about language use and persuasive health communication, a case of resistance to COVID-19 information, followed by David Okoti, who will be talking about the challenges and opportunities in curriculum monitoring and evaluation during COVID-19 pandemic in Kenya. Gregory Juma will be talking about COVID-19 pandemic and teaching and learning challenges and opportunities for students with disabilities in higher institutions of learning in Kenya. Then we shall have Makarios Wakoko. Makarios Wakoko will be talking about COVID-19 messages and the role of songs. Are they having a positive effect or a negative effect? Are they encouraging us or not? I think we'll have to listen to that. Then Kennedy Maasi will be talking about COVID-19 and access to e-learning among students in public universities in Kenya. That is an inherent concern. Then lastly, the second last paper will be presented by Dr. Henry Simeon Andelenga, and we'll be talking about phonological processes in the acquisition of Kiswahili phonology. The last presenter for that session will be Sebastian Okelo Angombe, and he'll be talking about correlates of COVID-19 and child labor, a study of Bungoma municipality. Guests, this is Kibabii University. You're welcome to the 5th International Conference, and this is the first virtual conference that Kibabii University is hosting. You are most welcome. Kindly stay put for more information. Welcome, my brother.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Laura Captain Mamuli, my PMC. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we are transmitting to you live from Kibabii University, the Senate Room. Welcome to this Kibabii University 5th International Conference that will be held today, 15th to tomorrow, 16th June 2021. And the theme of our conference is mitigating the post-COVID-19 impact on the realization of sustainable development goals. We are reaching you virtually, and our link, you can get to us through our link. We want to appreciate our sponsors that have enabled the success of this conference. Kibabii University with a platinum package. We have the gold package from Eldoret Hospital, Medihill Hospital, Erasmus program of the European Union. We have the Fountain Healthcare, Coca-Cola, CIC Group, and Almasi, Charling Enterprises, and Midland Emporium. The conference objective this year, ladies and gentlemen, is to provide a forum for academicians, practitioners, leading researchers, students, and stakeholders to present their research and expert opinions on implication of COVID-19 pandemic in order to institute appropriate policy response that will enable the countries to achieve their national agenda. The focus of the conference is on the implication of COVID-19 on the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. This is day one, and any time from now, we shall be starting our official opening ceremony. We want to express our thanks to the technical team that is enabling the transmission of our conference virtually, led by Zelemo Peter Zikoha, who is the chair, Crispino Zwanjala, Martin Elijah Cherote, Deborah Kisongochi, and Isabella Zizi. We want to thank this team for their dedication to work and for enabling us to reach you virtually wherever you are. So all our audience from our country, from East Africa, Africa, the wider diaspora, worldwide, want to say, feel most welcome. So we're going to start over our official function today, the opening ceremony. Our guests are in the house with us. The Vice Chancellor has just walked in with the guests. So let's get ready so that we can get started our official opening. So once again, as we wait for that, we're going to have some just short interludes of music. Let's listen to how Kibabii Yefwe is. This is a number that was done by Kibabii University International Choir, and we want to welcome you aboard so that you can have a taste of our music. Thank you. In a short while, you'll be sampling what Kibabii University has. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen, all from here in diaspora. Our guest of honor to the Kibabii University 5th International Conference, Dr. Mukisa Kitui, the Vice Chancellor, Kibabii University, Professor Isaac Odeipara, our DVCs present, DVC PPRI, Professor Mtua, DVC AFD, Professor Donald Siamba, DVC ASA, Professor Stanley Ngome Mtoso, all protocol observed, ladies and gentlemen. We want to welcome you to the Kibabii University 5th International Conference, running between today, 15th, to tomorrow, 16th June 2021, where our theme is mitigating post-COVID-19 impact on the realization of sustainable development goals. We are heading into the official opening ceremony, and we want to start by requesting Dr. Mtai to step forward. Just before she steps forward, we shall have the national anthems first, the three national anthems. After the three anthems, then Dr. Alice Mtai will step forward to commit us to the Lord. Guests of honor, sir, with your permission, allow me to request you to be upstanding for the national anthem. While upstanding, we request Dr. Alison Tai to step forward and commit us to the Lord. Dr. Tai.
Let us all bow down for a word of prayer. Mighty and everlasting Father, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the Father of all the creation, Lord of glory, we thank you and we bless you this morning. Want to thank you, Jehovah, for the gift of life. Want to thank you for each and every plan that you have for us this day. Want to thank you, my Father, for bringing us even unto this conference. Lord of glory, we ask you to go with us. Because, Lord, if you will not go with us, oh Lord, who will take us through, Jehovah Almighty? We ask your Holy Spirit to be with us, and we ask you to guide us in every way in the mighty name of Jesus. My Father and my Lord, I commit this conference before you. I commit the chief guest before you, my Lord. I commit all the guests before you, my Father, the participants, the presenters, and Kibabii University as a whole. My Lord and Savior, I pray that your will be done, even as you meet us in our points of needs. My Father, may you bless us, may you be with us, may you send the Holy Spirit to be with us, oh God, and to cover us with the precious blood of Jesus. May your will be done here and forever. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen. Let us all say amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Let's be seated. The guest of honor for the Kibabii University 5th International Conference, Dr. Lisa Bitui, who is a long-serving diplomat and the immediate former Under Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, the Vice Chancellor, Kibabii University, Professor Isaac Odeoifara, the Deputy Vice Chancellors, PPRI, Professor Mutua, the DVC AFD, Professor Siamba, the DVC ASA, Professor Mtoto, all protocol observed. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome all of you to this international conference, the first of its own that is reaching you virtually. And we are happy as Kibabii University fraternity to be hosting this conference. My name is Dr. Brian Singoro. I'm the Master of Ceremonies, and my co-host is
Dr. Laura Mamuli from the School of Business to welcome you to the 5th International Conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, KMC, Dr. Laura Mamuli. Guest of honor, sir, with your permission, allow me to invite Professor Baraka Bonyo to make a few remarks and invite the DVC PPRI, Professor Dr. Engineer Benedict Mutua, to make his remarks. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you, Dr. Singoro. Good morning, everybody. Chief guest, Vice Chancellor, welcome to the 5th International Conference for Kibabii University. Today is not my day to speak, but I want to just say one or two things. That Kibabii University is at the forefront of fighting against the pandemic, and that is COVID-19. This is the reason why Kibabii University has organized this conference. And the objective of this conference is very simple. Is what are we doing as humanities about COVID-19? What will we do after COVID-19 is over? And today, there are a lot of presentations that are going to be brought forth in this conference, ranging from medicine to finance to culture. Chief guest, you will realize that a lot of presentations that are going to come up are from Kibabii University, indicating that this is a house of brains that are at the forefront of fighting against COVID-19. It is not my day to talk today, and therefore I'm going to proceed straight to the program. And I'm going to take this opportunity to welcome Professor Dr. Engineer Benedict M. Mutua, DPC PPRI, to proceed with the meeting. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you, Prof. Our chief guest, Honorable Dr. Kitui, the chairman of Council of Kibabii University, represented by Ambassador Tom Wambua, our Vice Chancellor, Professor Isaac Paraudeo, our Deputy Vice Chancellors, Professor Jonas Yamba, in charge of Administration, Finance, Development, Professor Stanley Soso, in charge of Academics and Student Affairs, and the organizing committee for the 5th International Conference, our other keynote speakers who are logged in across the world, our dear participants also logged in across the world, the faculty, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Our chief guest, allow me to make a few remarks before I invite our Vice Chancellor to officially welcome you to Kibabii University and other guests. As my other colleagues have said, our chief guest, this is a very unique conference that we are hosting this year because of the current situation that has become the new normal because of the effect of the COVID-19. But as my colleagues have said, our chief guest, universities are supposed to be workshops of technologies, innovations, and we said that we have to continue the life. The effect of COVID-19 has impacted the social fabrics in so many ways, but as chief guest, we are happy to note that as Kibabii fraternity, we have come up with ways of going around mitigating on these impacts. World over, every person has been affected in one way or another. But I think it has also come as an opportune time for us as academia, researchers, and scientists to come up with new ways of doing things. And I'm happy to report to you, sir, that at Kibabii University, we have remained on the forefront, first to fight this pandemic, and to see how we can even turn it around to be an opportunity. And I want to say this, sir, that with the current situation, we've been able to innovate new ways of doing our teaching, learning, and research. And in fact, our programs are moving on. And for the first time in this challenge, we have the biggest numbers of papers that are going to be presented for the next 2 days. We have over 93 papers cutting across many areas of the Sustainable Development Goals. So I don't want to spend much time. I want to say that the focus that the world had, and I'm happy that you've been one of the front fighters on the attainment of the SDGs. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted negatively on this. And we asked ourselves as Kibabii University, and even as we focus on the Big Four agenda, what could be our contribution in fighting what we have at the moment and the post-COVID-19? And we came up with a theme that is keenly focusing on the Big Four agenda. And when you look at the Big Four agenda, sir, they are all around the 17 SDGs and their targets. And I'm happy to report that the papers will be focusing on the national big agenda and also cross-cutting issues, because we found that because of the COVID-19 impact, it has affected other sectors. So in brief, I think at the end of these 2 days, we'll be having a dialogue as scientists, researchers, academicians, to ask ourselves, yes, we are in this new normal. Can we make a contribution that is positive to ensure our socioeconomic development is not negatively affected? And I'm saying that it's going to happen with all the brains that we have within and those who are logged across the world. Allow me, with those few remarks, to humbly with your permission, request our Vice Chancellor, Professor Isaac Kibabii, to make his remarks and welcome the Chair of Council to make his remarks before the Chief Guest. Karibu, Vice Chancellor.
Dr. Kibabii, our chief guest today. One was made great achievements, but I will only pick one, the most recent, and that is Under Secretary General, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. My colleagues, members of management, members of Senate, participants, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that we are meeting today to start off this virtual 5th International Conference is a manifestation of the indomitable spirit of Kibabii University. I remember in March when we met here to share the directive by the President of the Republic of Kenya to close down the country. We were all dazed, we were all devastated. It's like we had lost hope and there was nothing. But you remember, senators, you said no. Senate must provide solutions. And I think since then our programs have run smoothly, culminating into this conference. COVID-19 has had very destructive impact on almost everything in a human being's life. But as intellectuals, as researchers, as people who have committed to provide solutions to challenges facing society, we need to remain sober and look at this from different perspectives. One is, let's look at the positives. What are the positives that we can pick out from this pandemic? Now, before we go to the negatives, and the negatives can also be looked at as opportunities to provide solutions to surmount the challenges we are facing. Colleagues, COVID-19 is not the first disaster. We have had many, many disasters that have faced mankind. And each time there's a disaster, leaders come together and say, never again. You remember the First World War, the League of Nations came together and said, never again. And then we faced the same thing in 1945. The American Depression, leaders across the world say, never again. But this has kept on recurring. So the question I ask myself is, if COVID had not come, would we have realized the sustainable development goals? Would we have attained 100% of the Big Four agenda? And the answer could probably be no. I'm saying that because we had the Millennium Goals, Millennium Development Goals. We were unable to make any meaningful achievement of this. So then this was crafted again to come up with what would appear to be easier to achieve, the Sustainable Development Goals. But if you read the literature, we are still facing challenges. And now our president decided the best thing is to have a very easy option. Pick out 4. But these 4 encapsulate all the 17 and see what approach you can. So before we got into 2 years of his rule, then we were visited by COVID-19. You know the impact it has had. So I think we are here today to try and share what we as intellectuals have dissected from this pandemic and see what we have benefited and what opportunities are available. I know I'll have a chance to say something later about our guest, but I think I cannot escape that temptation of saying we have the right person who can consolidate our thoughts and provide what would be a rallying call for us to share with the rest of society in terms of what do we do to move beyond COVID-19. And as we do that, colleagues, let's not forget, let's not sit pretty. COVID-19
Yes,
will not
yes,
be
yes, I can.
the last pandemic. So when the next pandemic hits us, will it find us in the same situation COVID-19 found us, or will we be in a better position to face it and therefore minimize the negative impact that we have witnessed for the last 1 year and 3 months? So with those few remarks, fellow participants of this conference, I wish to invite our Chairman of Council, Dr. Ernest Mwangi Njoroge, who is today ably represented by Ambassador Tom Mboya Wambua, to make his remarks. And thereafter, Professor Mtua will guide us on whether he will go ahead to invite the speaker or you'll have an interview. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Who is today ably represented by Ambassador go ahead. Those are the challenges, the challenges of internet, and of course brought by COVID-19. Yeah, but we are coping. We are coping. I was attending a conference, I think, hosted in West Africa, and I think the experience was not very nice. Are we ready? Zion, have we prompted it? Yes.
Yeah, Dorcas?
Yes, are you successful to
Yeah, I am. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay, very good, very good. Yeah. Our chief guest, Dr. Mukeza Kitui, the Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Vice Chancellors, University Management Board, or the presenters, and all participants. Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Ambassador Tom Wambua. I'm a council member of Kibabii University, and I'm here to represent our chairman of council, Dr. Ernest Njoroge, who would have wished to be here to give his remarks, but due to unexpected reasons, he was not able to. But our chief guest and all the participants receive our apology from the chairman, but he promised he is going to create time and follow all the presentations that are being recorded today. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to walk you through the journey we have come from. In December 2019, nobody knew here in Kenya if we are going to live the kind of lives we are living right now. COVID-19 came as a blow. It was not foreseen. In fact, for those who did management, business management course, they know there's something that is called the scanning the environment. At this particular time, nobody saw this kind of impact that was going to change how our lives was going to be. But it is here with us. COVID-19 has devastated lives, has lost lives. This is the first Kibabii University conference that is being held virtually. That is the new normal. This is the way life is going to be. Allow me to share with you a very experience I faced in my job as the ambassador for Iceland here in Kenya. In February, we lost one of the citizens here in Kenya. And we faced a huge challenge to transport that body back to Iceland. This was due to COVID-19 because no airline wanted to export that body. So the family allowed for cremation and to take the ash back to the country. That cremation happened sometime in March. Now, the next challenge was, how do we take the ashes from here in Nairobi to the Javik, where there's no direct flight from Nairobi? Again, there was no airline that was willing to touch this urn carrying ashes, which was suspected to be death caused by COVID-19. We struggled for 2 months to get transport. Eventually we managed. But can you imagine what the family was going through? This was a very senior person who was working. There is loss of income. There is loss of loss of life. And this is the way we are living. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody participating in this 5th Kibabii International Conference has been affected by COVID in one way. I am a business person. The way we do things is not the same way we used to do things in 2019. Things have changed, and that is the new normal. from the council perspective, the university has been doing great in terms of trying to live within the new normal. If anybody tells you COVID-19 is going to be eliminated in the coming 1 year, in my view, it is not possible. It is not possible. This is a situation we are going to deal with. And in my remark, I will come back to that point. The theme for this conference, ladies and gentlemen, if you allow me, is mitigating the post-COVID-19 impact on the realization of sustainable development goals. This is a very well thought theme because it resonates very well with the new way of doing things in the world. Be it a business person, be it a consultant, be it learning, be it, name it. And the university has done very great in terms of coming with a theme that picks the agenda of the executive and linking it up with the sustainable development goals that fit in within those four big four agenda. Affordable housing, which comes from the 11th SDG of sustainable cities and communities. Universal healthcare, which comes from SDG 3, that talks about good health and well-being. And again, food and nutrition, which comes from SDG 2, which comes from, zero hunger. And then the last one, the last agenda is enhancing manufacturing, which comes from SDG 12, responsible consumption and production. So this is a well thought out theme. And all the presentations are going to be centered around that. Because among those four, it touches the lives of every Kenyan. Our chief guest, we want to appreciate you for creating time to come and officiate this important conference. Our chief guest, Dr. Mkiza Kitui, is someone who is not new to us. He has been a politician. He has been a minister in Kibabii government. He has been one of the leading people in trade and development of East Africa community in this country. If you allow me, I just want to go through his education level so that you can know what kind of a chief guest we have. Yes, our chief guest has honors degree in political science and international relations from Uganda's Makerere University in 1982. He attended the University of Bergen in Norway, where he completed a master's in development studies and PhD in social anthropology, focusing on the nature and impact of market economic forces on the pastoral communities of East African, with case studies of the East African Maasai. That is very rich. His Last appointment was Under Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. So he's a person who has vast experience. And we are really privileged to have him today here. Chief guest and all the participants, we have a challenge in this country and we have a challenge in this world. How do we get back to the way we used to live without COVID? And the challenge is, and the answer is, can only be achieved when we get herd immunity. How are we going to get herd immunity? It's through vaccination. You remember very well, we had about 1 million vaccine doses, but it took us a long time for people to accept that vaccination. As people associated with university, we need to educate our community on the importance of vaccination, because that is the only way we are going to be able to start getting closer to where we used to be back in the days of 2019 before COVID-19. At this juncture, I don't know whether I'm allowed to invite our chief guest, or I will pause there and get it back to the MC.
Sir, you can go ahead.
Hello?
The chief guest. Sir, you can go
very
ahead.
good. So, okay, so ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding, the ones who are in the hall, and join me in welcoming our chief guest, Dr. Mukiza Kitui, EGH and PhD. Makofi as he comes to take over. Can we clap for him, please? Thank you, thank you. Over to you, our chief guest.
Thank you very much, Member of Council. Members of Council represented at this meeting, the Vice Chancellor of Kibabii University, members of the academic community of Kibabii, members of the academia, and interested parties around the world participating in this meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, may I briefly indulge it from the outset that I happen to be physically present in this virtual meeting because of other engagements which don't go very well with a suited person. And therefore, I was more purported for my next assignment than this eminent meeting. Thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this matter, in this conversation of immense national and international importance. I thought it's helpful for me as a person who is willfully abandoning the world where you use a lot of thinking to one where you use a lot of tactics, to renew my acquaintance with the thinking community and reflect together on a challenge that is not only important internationally, but of acute importance to the country we belong in, Kenya. I think going forward, the conversation about how to recover better, the next steps post the initial phase of COVID, is going to be too important to be left to consultants and social groups. And we increasingly will need the participation and leadership, thought leadership from the academic community. And it's in this regard that I very much want to express my appreciation for how well academia is represented in the presentations at the next series of days of the Kibabii 5th International Conference. Before I delve into the matter at hand, I wish to also set my expression of appreciation to the Kibabii community for very, very quickly, dramatically building a very, very credible academic institution and having a very today work consciousness in your academic work and the willingness to be part of the international conversation on matters of immense importance to us all. Today, we're in a phase where, as the immediate last speaker mentioned, one of the biggest challenges is to refocus attention on how much can we up the level of coverage of vaccine as the ultimate tool that will reduce or perhaps defeat the pandemic that has been with us now for nearly 140 years. Unfortunately, a number of challenges in the way. As you've seen from some of our neighboring countries, those most in need of certain services are most incapable of administering them even when they have them. The logistics that have been a nightmare in the utilization of vaccines in South Sudan, Ethiopia, and DRC are a statement of the misfortune that the most needy are the ones who are most in access, not able to access what they need for dealing with the pandemic. But it's not just those countries. I think even in country, you have some challenges of logistics in some areas, but also another challenge that is of the modern media society. Every person who has access to Facebook becomes an expert on everything. So that a lie told about the nature and impact of the vaccine on Facebook is embraced by some people as a gospel truth. And they peddle it in a village like the professors of epidemiology. It's very difficult because some of the persons peddling this kind of gossip, those anti-vaccine myths, are fairly well-educated people, only that are educated in fields other than the field where they are pretending competence. It continues to be a major challenge. The last statistic I saw that was frightening for me was the number of nurses who are reluctant to take the vaccine. You can find the doctors, the professors are taking the vaccine, by the nurses, they blend the level of knowledge about the pandemic and what they read in social media to invent new narratives of pseudoscience, which are very, very much an impediment to getting this done. It's not unique to Kenya. You have seen how in America, some states are offering alcohol to people who take a vaccine and are given a free drink. Others are put into a raffle that the winner to get $1 million to encourage the reluctant, the skeptical to take the vaccine. But that's a phase and challenge you're going through, and there's no gainsaying the critical importance of government and public institutions putting priority in the vaccination. And in this regard, I think I very much appreciate the decision of government in the last budget to put aside some resources to enhance public acquisition of additional vaccines beyond the COVAX initiative of the United Nations. I think we are slow and late out of the blocks, but it's better late than never. Countries which have had the best practice in the world, like Israel and Rwanda, very early on went and paid premium price for early allocation of vaccines and embarked upon vaccination of their citizens long before those waiting for donated vaccines will start getting started. The area that I want to talk a bit more about is more like if we are going to resuscitate the momentum on SDG implementation post-COVID, what are the challenges in our way? And what are the possible things we may need to do? And naturally, I will start in an area where I have relative competence on, which is what have been the patterns of global trade, investment, reorganization, reorientation in the wake of the COVID. I say this because one of the main challenges we're going to face as we try to recover after COVID is the global patterns, the global map of investment and trade, the global map of value chains and production networks has been so dramatically transformed in the period that we've been away because of COVID, that we have to think about totally new patterns of investment and totally new policies of industrialization. We have to realize the goals that we set out. Probably the investment monitor, quarterly publication by the United Nations Conference of Trade and Development, in its first 2021 publication, showed a number of clear patterns. One, the virtual collapse of investment, foreign direct investment into most developing countries, particularly in the African countries. And not just that, even in some developed economies, FDI flow in the UK was at zero at the end of December 2020. In many countries of Europe, there was negative, what we call investment. In Africa, we realized that 39% decline in foreign direct investment. in the second, third, and fourth quarter of 2020. Globally, there are signs of recovery, but very, very mixed signs of recovery. The only two countries which had a net positive recovery in the fourth quarter of 2020 were China and Vietnam. But Europe, continental Europe and US have shown steady recovery since then, particularly through the first half of this year. But then there are a number of patterns about this recovery that are important for us to note. One, COVID coincided with the rise of economic nationalism in the developed countries of the West. What it meant is that politicians could drive decisions on investment, not optimizing efficiency of the market, low cost of production, timeliness, quality of product, but much more, for example, with the US, that we are incentivized to move your investment and in production out of China to any other part of the world. Originally first to Vietnam, but then increasingly, it opened the gates to what we're calling reshoring and regionalization. That companies in places like the US, which are maximizing on the labor efficiencies of much of Eastern Asia, have moved their production either domestically with tax incentives or into neighborhoods, particularly in Mexico. And you see the same in Europe. The regionalization has seen a massive expansion of the car making industry, car manufacturing in Morocco and the Czech Republic. As the destination there, the production of manufactured goods moves closer to the market and not so much to the source of the cheapest labor or most competitive product conditions. So the impact of economic nationalism, the rising technology cold war between the US and China particularly, are going to be major shapers of a totally new global production system with shortened global value chains, with the niches for countries which are depending on the industrial policy on special economic zones and export processing zones, very, very significantly disrupted. If you are making some textile product out of industrial area in Athi River, Kenya, for the American market under AGOA, and you're importing canvas from China, you become casualty of the rising economic competition between China and the US, where increasingly the US is looking for the exclusion of any Chinese content in the product it brings to the market. Of course, that competition is seen particularly heavily in the rollout of 4G, 5G telecoms, where the most efficient, cost-effective company in the world is Huawei. But for reasons of the technology war, most friends of America have been forced and pushed and cajoled and twisted to cut links with Huawei and look to alternatives from Ericsson, Nokia, or some other Western source company. I'll come back to this when we're looking at how our recovery is, when our access to traditional value-added markets are declining. And we need export-led growth to create the new jobs that are going to be necessary as a consequence of collapse of many sectors during the COVID period. During the COVID pandemic, in the final phase, the first phase, most countries, including developing countries, rushed out economic stimuli programs, either a subsidy to manufacturers, tax waiver to consumers and to manufacturers, helicopter money to small business. I remember I was living in the city of Geneva, and the government took an audit of everyone because you are supposed to know everybody's income because they declare legitimate taxes. You see a percentage of tax to see how much they're paying labor, and then the government was paying sufficient gift money to enterprise so as not to declare workers redundant. In Kenya, we saw examples of government waivers on some direct tax, which was very, very well taken. Unfortunately, in the wake of compounding problems, declining state revenues because of declining trade business, but also substantial challenge of budget deficit, we have seen not only the lifting of the waiver that had been created on taxes, but actually the increase of taxes, the expansion of VAT into areas which do not have VAT, like gas, cooking gas. We've seen a series of increases on tax on petroleum,
and beyond many of us, this morning the Kenya government increased the tax on petroleum, I think for the third time in less than a month. But we're seeing that after an initial phase of shelter, after initial phase of softener, dampener of the impact of the COVID, we're seeing a government economic conditions positive into making things even more difficult than they were before COVID struck. The expansion of the gadget of taxation and expansion particularly on the indirect tax like VAT and the increase in petroleum levies that are being hiked so regularly. What does this portend for the future? Kenya has had a number of things that we would consider pre-existing conditions before the arrival of COVID. In some areas, of course, economic vulnerability and health vulnerability made people easier prey for converting an attack to death. But also we have seen a number of challenges that have been with us, that are going to be with us, and have to be confronted when we look at the recovery. We are part of a continent which has seen a fizzling out of projected expenditure that will help to achieve the goals of Agenda 2030, the SDGs. In the course of 2020, the decline on investment in SDG-related sectors reached 19% lower than the year 2015. What does this mean? 2015 is the starting year of Agenda 2030. And everybody was committed to an agenda that will lift investment in green energy, investment in human resources, social investment, investment in gender equality, in the indices of well-being, education, health, and so on, housing, clean water. But in 2020, we regressed and we were 19% worse than in 2015 in the pursuit of Agenda 2030. So the Herculean task before us is not only how to build back better, but how to stem reversals that are taking us back beyond where we started as the foot camp of Agenda 2030 climb. Secondly, and this is most worrisome, that there is no clear indication of any recovery in global FDI flows into SDG sectors. While in developed countries and medium developed countries, we're seeing this SDG mentality, economic and social and governance considerations in investment, driving green energy, new bonds, new green investments and FDI. We are seeing insufficient new investment in the blue economy, in sustainable climate mitigation work, in sustainable social capital development. On the contrary, you are in a situation where last year you had a little pause on certain forms of debt service. The DSSI, an initiative of UN and the World Bank IMF, debt service suspension initiative, froze the servicing of multilateral debt for a period of mostly 1 year. It is now being moved off. And when you see it getting moved off, is when you start hearing IMF is asking that the Kenya government has to cut down on its public education budget, including downsizing support to universities, including downsizing the number of courses and lecturers at public universities. Kenya is under pressure to dispose of non-profitable public corporations. Kenya is told you have an unsustainable public wage bill, which has to be downsized to reach within reasonable limits as a basis of receiving any support on balance of payment that's so acutely necessary now. And additionally, possessional funding, money to be borrowed to retire expensive debt. These are conditions under which we now start looking for what are the recovery levers. But what are the most affected sectors that now we have to recover? Everybody knows globally, the first major casualty of the pandemic was the hospitality industry and the attendant transport, international air travel industry. All of you know The hospitality industry has been a major source of employment in Kenya, with auxiliary services, not just the hotel, it's the traditional dancers who come to the hotel, it's the suppliers of fresh produce, it is the truckers who take tourists around the game parks. All these related services have massively been hit by the COVID. And if you go to any of the coastal hotels, right now you find occupancy rates of below 15%. Many hotels are kept open in order to reduce the cost of reopening. The skeleton staff are retained just to service parts. Like a large factory, if you shut it down, it will be very, very costly to operationalize it again. So you keep a low velocity operations, but it is not economically viable anymore. Very, very significant consequences follow from this. Internationally, airlines were already struggling because of oversupply of airlines and flight capacity. The pandemic has moved many airlines from HDU to ICU. The pattern of recovery for some of them remain extremely uncertain. But the drain that some of them which have dependent on the public guarantee for debt will have a ripple effect on the already existing corporate and public debts in the countries in which they are, including Kenya. Before the COVID arrived, Kenya's balance of trade with its neighbors was in negative territory. That for nearly a decade, we have seen a steady decline of Kenyan exports to East Africa vis-a-vis the pattern of increasing imports from East Africa. In one way, that's not a problem. Kenya had a substantial advantage, particularly towards its most important trading partner in the world, which is Uganda. But in another way, it says a number of important things. When you are seeing increasingly manufacturers of consumer goods migrating production to Dar es Salaam and supplying Nairobi out of Dar es Salaam, this is something Tanzania is doing right and Kenya is doing wrong. And unless you identify that as an element, any aspirations that manufacturing is going to be one of the levers for national recovery remains a pipe dream. And similarly, if you go to places like Kiminini, near Kitale, every day you see pickups arriving with pineapples from Uganda, flooding the regional market. Or even in Bungoma, the neighborhood of Kibabii, this is a transit route of chicken and eggs from Uganda feeding the Kenyan market. For an agricultural economy, if there's a steady expansion in importation of products that you have traditionally produced, you have reason to worry. What is making made in Kenya and competitive? The disruptions of international supply networks that I spoke about mean that the main engine of export-led growth in African countries is going to be exporting to Africa. The coming into force of the Continental Free Trade Area earlier this year should have been a watermark about new opportunities for Kenya. And yet, if we demonstrate declining competitiveness even regionally in the Eastern African region, it means our neighbors will eat our cake for us. Unless we address what are the competitive weaknesses, vulnerabilities, and address made in Kenya to become competitive again, that opportunity of that market is not going to be available to us. But there are a number of markets that are going to be very important and available to this country. One area that has not received sufficient attention. So we talk so much about the importance of agriculture, but we talk about services as if it's a secondary consideration. We have clear documents about Kenya's industrialization, but we do not have any sufficient attention about industrializing the services industry. Yet services is Kenya's most competitive sector, even in regional export terms. How do I mean? Professional services, engineering, audit services, pre-production, post-production, and post-delivery services, accounting, auditing services, legal services, engineering consulting, financial services, particularly fintech services. Kenya, relative to the rest of Africa, is world class. And Kenya's export of services in the region is already way ahead of Kenya's agricultural export into the region. And what does that mean? There has to be a policy flexibility to start addressing areas that we have just been managing by rote. When some sectors come up and grow on their own, we still pretend them away that they can take care of themselves, but that limits the capacity of growth. When horticulture exploded on Kenya, it was not out of any purposeful action of government, but mainly the organizations of horticultural producers and exporters who address the logistical challenges, the traceability market requirements, and the upstream requirements of producers that made that miracle happen, making Kenya account for 1/3 of total horticultural imports in the European Union. Kenya, the largest roses exporter in the world after Colombia. These kind of considerations should inform policy that if you are late in catching up, now at least catch up and sustain that momentum. This is the moment where we should start saying new service opportunities have to drive public policy in the areas that will have the quickest returns in creating new employment. Similarly, I've been a major person arguing about reading clearly the digital revolution that has been happening, the fourth industrial revolution. While there are so many negatives with the fourth industrial revolution, one of which is that although the digital investments is the fastest, in some places the only growing FDI into developing countries. In many countries, you'll notice the characteristics of the digital investments that they make money, but they don't create employment. The invisibles are distant. I mean, until I resigned from the UN, I was a commissioner of the Broadband Commission. And our last general meeting was in Silicon Valley at the home of, hosted by Facebook. And you find an organization with 38,000 employees and only 2,000 are living abroad. The rest are in Silicon Valley. You have a similar phenomenon with Apple, with Microsoft, that they have a digital footprint with a limited fiscal footprint abroad, meaning very limited employment opportunities abroad. Secondly, a major characteristic of the platform giants, the digital platform companies, is they pay more than 90% of taxes in the US and yet make more than 50% of their profit abroad. So the absence of a clear taxation policy and sustainable taxation approach to the digital giants has been a major matter of contention, which is still, the jury is still out about how it's going to be dealt with. There are significant attempts being made by the European Union to discipline this process, but the capacity of individual African countries to similarly discipline taxation measures on the digital revolution are modest. But having said that, the country of Kenya is gifted with young digital entrepreneurs with clear capacities for developing world-class apps, with phenomenal flair and self-trust about what they can do. But what support do we give them? We leave them to go to the banks to look for credit to develop an idea into a product. And the bank asks this young graduate from university whose only assets are his ideas or her ideas and a laptop. They're asking them, can you show us your credit history? Can you show us the security on the basis of which you are going to borrow money? I'm one of the people who are saying, as we see certain traditional sectors disappear because of COVID, building back better means we have to show new flexibility to de-risk enterprises that can be the engines of new opportunity. Just like government uses money to write off debts of coffee, sugarcane farmers, government should use some of that money to reinsure debt that is used by digital entrepreneurs in startup enterprises. I've had the privilege to visit the country of Azerbaijan, where the Ministry of Communication and Innovation has a very interesting program. Getting money out of the National Sovereignty Fund, the National Sovereign Fund. The government creates a business park, and every person who comes with an idea that looks like it can be marketable is given an office with electricity, communications, Wi-Fi, water, and an administrative assistant without rent for 18 months. If your idea has grown and now it can be brought to scale as a commercially viable enterprise, you are given a chance with a loan to set up outside the green belt. If it is a bad idea, you have to go and bring a new one and take it. The consequence is you have brilliant young men and women who have gone particularly into gaming, developing world-class gaming products and selling internationally. I am sure the home of M-Pesa can produce similarly competent, effective young men and women, but they don't have to wait for a government to come and buy the idea the way M-Pesa was bought from young, brilliant Nairobi University students. It should now be part of our policy that for every technical university like Kibabii, it's public responsibility to build a business incubator so that the graduates of certain enterprises are given an opportunity to demonstrate the viability of the effort. They're given support for market linkages and a fighting chance that they can turn their dreams into an income. Only this way are we going to unlock the potential of the digital revolution as a way of creating Kenyan netpreneurs that can again be an engine of the new economy that we're going into. But perhaps the most important thing that we should talk about when we're talking about recovering better is politics. If political competition has totally taken leave of the reality of COVID and the COVID economy, the solutions that it comes with are solutions to problems that the politics sees. So politics can see solutions to problems of people who feel they have not been sufficiently represented in politics and throw money at giving them more representation. People who feel that they have not had enough of their own in government, create opportunities to put some of their own in government. That circus totally insulated from the reality that we're hurting economy. That if you go to many towns today, you see people packing their beds and chairs and putting on buses to go up country. Historically, when low-income people migrate from the city to the countryside, not going for a funeral, not retiring, but because the bad conditions you run away from in the countryside were better than the conditions you are living today in the city. It's a major statement of an economy that is in pain. But unless it percolates into the conversation of politics, political prescriptions will be totally alien to the felt challenges of a national recovery. And one of the main areas that a conference like this should drive is how can we open space, how can we create a canvas where policymakers, public intellectuals, researchers, and the development community read from the same script about the dire economic conditions and social conditions we're in, rededicate collectively to the pursuit of the dreams and aspirations of sustainable development, and see the ideas that are informed by research and intellectual leadership percolating into public policy for a viable and sustainable recovery. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Dr. Kibabii. That was very, I don't know how to describe it, whether it is fantastic or intellectual. It was a great speech. And the speakers that came over spoke of very specific things and very targeted things. The DVC PPRI told us that we have brains to deal with COVID-19. We should not be afraid. The VC told us that this is not the first disaster. There are many to come, and we will win. And let's not just consider it as a disaster. Let's consider it as an opportunity. The chair of the council, the representative of the chair of the council gave us a story, a very touching story, where nobody wants to carry even the asses in their airline of a person that has COVID-19. And that the university must operate under the new normal. Dr. Kibabii has talked about so many things. A lot of them are beyond my my training. But yes, some of the things that were interesting was that this was an opportunity for other developed countries to edge out China in investment. And that was funny. But the other things that he talked about, which was critical, is that this is a very important opportunity for digital revolution. And digital revolution occurs mostly in the developed countries. And here they give us very little in terms of taxes. And so we need to develop our own, and therefore we need to de-risk lending to young innovators. And finally, it talks about a better recovery must involve politics, and that the policymakers, the educators, the researchers must come together to formulate new ways of dealing with the pandemic. And I think this is the reason why we are here. We have brought Dr. Mukisa Kitui. We have brought many researchers here today to figure out what are we going to do about COVID-19. With that, I just want to open the field. I think we have how many minutes?
For the session, we have 30 minutes.
We have 30 minutes. We have 30 minutes. We are going to give opportunity for anybody who has a comment or a question. You can have a comment for everybody, or you can have a question to Dr. Mukisa Kitui, and then we will give him an opportunity to answer. Thank you, sir. Prophet.
Let me start. I think all protocol observed. I would like the VC to step forward and make his remarks from here.
Okay.
Please, you have to step forward. Plus any other participants who have questions, just come and line up here so that after the VC, then
Yes.
you can make your remarks.
Yes.
And those ones who are online, you can reach us through the chat box. You can also get us through our link. Thank you. I was saying, offering to speak first was selfish, but there are certain things I thought I would have said earlier. We are very happy and lucky to have Dr. Mukisa Kitui here. Dr. Mukisa is a solid intellectual. This is somebody who has spent most of his adult life in academia, and particularly research. You have seen it yourself. It's somebody who has a passion for analyzing, dissecting, synthesizing issues, and applying solutions from those issues. He's always been the lead in teams that provide solutions to issues through debates, through consultancy. But more importantly, negotiations. He's a very good negotiator. Now, there are many things that he has accomplished in life. We have mentioned some of them, you have read about some of them. There are many others he intends to do. He may not have shared them with us, but now this is an opportunity we have to direct him to address some of those intentions. But I have something I want to raise. Dr. Mukisa is not new in the politics of Kenya. In fact, he has been actively involved in national and international politics from 1992. And some of the people he has worked with are still there, and they want to be in leadership. The question is, have they changed?
And has Mufisa himself changed? Because if we have been having these problems in Kenya from 1992, and it looks like the problems are going to get worse, what are the solutions? And I just want to pick a scenario from a very recent unfortunate occurrence. The politicians had their day in Kisumu. And after leaving Kisumu, what has happened? Professor, what is happening? There's misery, there's pain, because they ignored the threats of COVID. To them, addressing the crowd was more fulfilling than what the crowd would face. What is this that is ailing African governance, African leadership? Can you provide some advice? Because unless we do things right, it will be difficult for us to cope with COVID-19 and maybe cope with future pandemics. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, the Vice Chancellor, Kibabii University, Professor Isaac Oduifara. We want to remind the members of our audience to kindly raise their hands online or use the chat box. We shall unmute you and allow you to communicate with us. Thank you. Dr. Fuller, welcome.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here today. And most importantly, having listened to a very inspiring speech, about 2 or 3 things that I want to quickly raise. And one is that we have the young generation being disenfranchised to pursue education in Kenya today, because it looks like there is a great disconnect between learning and development in Kenya as a country. We are looking at situations where all the riches are within the political circles, and you find that the professors are wallowing in the miasma of poverty. So it's difficult to tell our young scholars to get educated and live a better life as it were in the past. What are we doing about it so that we do not reach a level where wealth becomes the determinant of success and not knowledge that can move us? Number 2, I would want to say that Dr. Muhisa, you are among the people that we admire very much in the circles of politics, career, and so forth. But there's a great disconnect between your generation and the young generation. We are not seeing mentorship, connecting the young people to the knowledge that you're having. If we are not careful, we will have a break of our disconnect between your information and what the young people are having. So I think as a director of mentorship in this university, I would want to say, I don't know what you are having, particularly in nurturing our young talents. Our young people actually have a lot of innovation, and given exposure and mentorship, they can do a lot. So I would want to see what are your mentees, who are the people you are bringing up to take after you after you exit the field. Lastly, we have a lot of innovation among our young people, but we are lacking the venture capital. I don't know whether through your interactions, you can help us establish or equip our innovation center. We already have an innovation center at Kibabii, and I do believe that if you would connect us to people who can help us grow it, then definitely we will be among solution providers and not complainers. We don't want only to study about factors that cause poverty, but we want to see how best we can tackle that. So I want to ask you to see if you can help us, even rename it Dr. Muhisa Kitu Innovation Center, and help us bring it up in a manner that it can empower the young generation to prosperity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fuller. Once again, members of our audience who are online, kindly raise up your hand. We shall unmute your mic so that you will enable you to speak to us, or you can use the chat section, put in your question. We shall transmit it to Dr. Muhisa Kitu to answer. May I invite Dr. Boya to make his remarks or ask questions?
Thank you very much, our chief guest. All protocol observed. Following your remarks, Honorable Dr. Kibabii, I have learned that there's a general trend in the decline of the foreign direct investments globally, save for a few countries like China and Vietnam. And as a result, you have mentioned that the trend is towards the shortening the value chain, where the production is realigned towards reshoring and regeneration. You realize then that, as you mentioned, towards the advent of SDGs, where was economic decline. Apparently, there has been the same economic reversals towards the mitigation of measures that the government, various governments took. Globally, of course, there was the debt service suspension. Locally, we have had mitigation measures which led to suspension of certain taxes. Now, do you think it was a mistake for the suspension of debt service, and locally for the suspension of certain taxes? Because now we have ended up into the worst situations than we had before, where now you find the tax brackets when you consider pay as you earn, the tax brackets have been expanded so that you find more people have been brought on board, because realize the government has faced a shortage in cash. So they are trying to get more cash to attend to the issues. Was it then a mistake? The fuel levies, they have exorbitantly raised the taxes. Where are we? And since the COVID-19 is not ending any soon, what future do we have? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Boya, for your remarks. Guest of honor, I have two comments or just two questions. The debt of Kenya in the last 7-8 years has risen from 3 trillion to 9 trillion. We have a budget of about 3 trillion. Does it worry you as an international economist? And what would you advise? Two, the flooding of foreign produced goods, basic goods, watermelon, eggs, groundnuts, rice, sugarcane, tomatoes, onions, all from Uganda or Tanzania. Does it worry you? Where have we gone wrong? The Sugar Company, Momias are in ICU. Cheap sugar is being imported from Uganda. What is the problem? And what would you advise the government to do? Thank you. I would like to invite my QMC, Dr. Laura Mamuli, to move in and give us the questions from the chat section so that when Dr. takes the floor, then he can combine. Dr. Mamuli, please.
Just before he comes in, and because he will now go directly to the online, I just wanted also to present a question to Dr. Mukisa. The best solution to a disease is a cure. And as we speak today, we are ravaging HIV. And now we are having medicine containing it or curing it. For COVID-19, the potential for curing it is seen to be in herbal medicine. Specifically, African medicinal plants are being used as we speak. What can the government do to enhance the processing, value addition, conservation, scientific analysis of these plants? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Guest of honor, sir, we are over 20 chats, but we're going to zero down on 2. Then you can take the floor. Dr. Mamuli, please.
Okay, thank you. Guest speaker, sir, there are some concerns from 2, the ones that we have zeroed in. One from Isaac Manje, he says, The transition rate from high school to university has been quite high in the recent past. The number of graduates exiting universities each year is quite high. Where will all these graduates go to after school, considering the job market is really flooded and job opportunities are quite few? What can the government do to ensure that the training offered to these graduates does not go to waste and that the graduates can still earn a decent living from their training? And then the second one is from National Dero. He also asks, Dr. Kitui, the youth unemployment problem in Kenya features a wide skills gap and skills mismatch. Training institutions are not well equipped to impart the market-ready skills industry needs, and labor market transition has not been a just and inclusive process to these young graduates. How can we transform our labor market participation model to be more youth-centric? Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I take this chance to invite our chief guest, Dr. Kitui, take the podium and respond or comment. Let's appreciate him as he comes. He's 60 plus, but he walks like an under 20. Take the podium.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, President and virtual audience, for this expansion of the discussion and also very important questions. Starting with my friend, my childhood friend, the Vice Chancellor. You know, there is a national conversation that does not happen. Who is a right leader? Or put it another way, do Kenyans want leaders or they want politicians? Because a politician is an opportunist who jumps to the front of the longest queue. A leader is a person who says, where does society need to go? And can we create a queue around the issues of where we want to go? For a long time, my sense is Kenya has been driven by the opportunism of politicians and not the vision of leaders. And you cannot blame politicians who sought office, not for any clear purpose, but because it was exciting that they led a long queue. A composite queue of tribal paramount chiefs and their promise, their followers, a queue of persons who are following the ethnic paramount chief or something. At the end of the day, there is no anticipated national agenda that has been the basis of winning power. And you start complaining that people are not addressing the national agenda. I think where societies should usually develop democracy is when they say the contest for leadership should be based on a sense of purpose. Now, I've had a friend say he's running for president because he has been living for others too many times. This time he will not live for others. I just wonder, and is that the reason why we should make you our president? This is a reality. And in times of crisis is when societies often model answers that help them in the long term. And as they say in Rwanda and a few other places, we should not waste a crisis. We have a crisis of COVID. We have a crisis of mounting public debt with anxiety, serious existential challenges. It becomes an opportunity for us to say, what kind of leadership do we want? And you only ask that question intelligently if you are defining what is our destination, where do we want to go? That relates to the question being asked about the existential challenge to young people. I'm born out of a very poor family. And I was telling a funeral in Webuye yesterday. I used to work from Bokoli in the middle of Bungoma County to Naitiri at halftime. I'll get home after walking the 40 kilometers with the wounded, bruised feet. They recover 3 days later when the halftime is over and I start walking back to school. Not many of people with that background have made it in life. Many persons sold their family properties to go to school and they do not have any evidence that an education gives you a fighting chance for a job. We have to realign skills, all right, but I don't accept just a simple cliche like was put by someone that the problem of Kenya is a mismatch between skill and opportunity. most of the Kenyan men and women who are learning have the capacity to unlearn some of the things that were irrelevant and embrace new knowledge as a basis of aligning their skills with the market requirements. And I think that intellectual flexibility is growing in this country. I see a lot of young men and women who are fantastic in things they did not study. My PhD was in economic anthropology, the economy of pastoralists. I have been talking like an authority in the most prestigious universities around the world about the future of investment. It's not because I studied it at school, but because I had the capacity to use my educational background to unlearn some irrelevant things and learn new things. And I don't think that that's impossible with a lot of the young men and women in this country, the young men and women in our universities. There's a problem also. The notion that you go to school so as to be employed is a false notion. You go to school to be liberated and see how you can optimize your talents, your pursuits, your dreams, your aspirations. This one-on-one linkage between education and a direct job in government is a killer issue that should not be encouraged. Young people need a livelihood, but they don't need employment in government. Secondly, there is an obsession of early success, material success. You know, it upsets me when I see how many brilliant young people from primary school, from secondary school, they ask, what are you going to study at university? I want to study procurement. When I was at school, there was no course called procurement. Procurement is just a set of practices. You know how to fill the right forms and submit them and wait for see if you can get a tender. But just the notion that once you know how to apply for government jobs, it becomes a professional engagement is limiting your intellectual development to competing for government tenders. And it's just driven by this desire for low-hanging fruits. There is no society which organically develops, evolves on the basis of every young person looking for low-hanging fruits. Some of the best fruits are usually higher up on the branches. We have to allow that also to happen. It's part of the pressure, even sometimes high blood pressure of our youth is the sense of failure because they're seeing others who have gone into government tenders and procured driving big cars and building large houses. This is a false model of a sustainable national renewal and growth. And I think we have an adult responsibility to disabuse ourselves of this notion that only those who went to school and quickly became millionaires are the ones who studied the right things. I don't think that that's what school is supposed to deliver to us. But having said that, democracy is nurtured in very shallow soil. Democracy grows in an assumption, sometimes a delusion, that tomorrow will be richer than yesterday. The perpetual hope of self-improvement is one of the drivers of democratic society. If you look at the fall of the Weimar Republic in Germany, in the years following the Great Depression, is that many countries were staring at declining livelihoods beyond generations. They voted against democracy, bringing fascists and Nazis, knowing that they are not going to respect democracy because of that crisis. You have seen in recent times when globalization was not allocating benefits equally around the world. Rust belts in industrial countries where the assumptions that white workers were more efficient than colored workers had been demonstrated to be false, was starting to embrace economic nationalism, even abuse democracy because of chasing away the other who is taking our jobs. So the reality is, if we cannot find a viable way of surviving hope among young Kenyans, that after the effort they have made in going to school and obeying the law, they will have a livelihood, they will have bring up their families and have their children go to school. Our democratic experiment can become a casualty. And to me, the solution to that is expanding a national conversation that talks about how can we recover better. It's not just choosing between people playing political theater. Now, to some of the other questions, education and the mentorship, yes, I understand. There's a question I've been asked very many times. I would have loved to be part of building a national culture of mentorship. Unfortunately, for the time being, for the next 1.5 years, I'm involved in a disrupted enterprise that cannot allow properly for mentorship. But I agree totally that mentorship is key to just reassuring the worth and the ability and the self-drive of young persons in this country, and particularly in poor neighborhoods, where all role models have migrated with their feet to live in cities away from home. There are few persons who encourage that you can make it, and it is a challenge. It's a problem we have to deal with. Financing innovation centers is such a major phenomenon. I don't think it should depend on hunting philanthropists. We have to mainstream a government that spends money on helping children get through an education system should have the logical responsibility of spending additional money to give innovation centers a chance that those young persons coming through the education system can live out their dreams that have been nurtured in those institutions. So to me, public investment in innovation centers should not be taken away to pass it to philanthropists. I have been involved in a program that has been encouraging some of the innovators, together with Jack Ma, the founding chairman, former chairman of Alibaba. We started an African Netpreneurs program, where we send young digital entrepreneurs to the Hangzhou campus of Alibaba to learn how to build electronic market visibility and visit the Taobao villages on how to link up rural producers with international markets. The largest number that we've been able to send have been from Kenya. Unfortunately, we did not quite capture some destinations like Kibabii. I'm sure that if we had actually some incubators or innovation centers with active entrepreneurs, would have been able to find some of the people from this to be part of this program. About how governments have responded to the pandemic. You know, if you are a country with a reserve currency, you have special drawing rights at IMF, you can just print money to finance the problem at home because of the COVID. You saw the helicopter money that has been given, even Biden just gave the last batch recently after he came into office. But countries like Kenya have limited fiscal instruments to express solidarity with people. So the political desire to assist, which was very clear in President Kenyatta's first efforts in March, April last year, could not be sustained with the level of resources at his disposal. And so it was not only cut back, but we have seen even an increase of taxation, VAT capturing more sectors than before the COVID, petroleum prices rising abnormally high, including the latest hike which happened last night. These are realities on the ground. I personally can understand the conditions under which this has been done, but I will not do it totally this way. To me, I will freeze certain major investment projects underway to avail resources to soften the pain that is suffered by many families. I would have made it a public responsibility to cover some of the bill of hospitalized cases of COVID. Families are being bankrupted. Many of us are running frightened every time we see a phone call from an unknown number. Somebody has a person in ICU because of COVID. There is no social cushion. I think that no better cushion with the COVID pandemic than mitigating the pain, the financial cost of caring for those who are victims, particularly among the underinsured, the most vulnerable among us. And this is an area that I would not have said there's no money. I would have cut down some of the not very pressing expenditures that we gas public investment and use those resources that are saved to mitigate the very, very widespread pain that is there in the country. So that I hope partly answers to the question of would you have taken away some of the tax exemptions that were introduced? I did go public and request the president to reconsider the sunset on that 5% reduction of pay as you earn. Today, of course, debt is a challenge to Kenya. I was asked what I think. I've been saying this before the current situation, that the pattern and direction of Kenya's debt requirement is unsustainable. From a country which had a 1.9 trillion shillings debt in 2013 to be at 8 trillion shillings today is absolutely not justifiable. You cannot have ambitions that run way ahead of your means. You cannot, in the name of sustainable development, bequeath an expensive debt to the next generation. This year's budget has 609 billion shillings in debt redemption. That is equivalent to the entire budget of the legislature, the entire budget plus the entire budget of the judiciary times 10. 609 billion shillings is what we're providing for debt redemption. But some of that, most of that money is not going to come from savings. We are going to try to secure cheaper debt in order to pay back the debt that is due. I don't know in what model of economic activity this is sustainable. You cannot run a budget of 8% of deficit, 8% budget deficit for 8 years, for 10 years. The consequence is where we are staring at very, very, very gloomy times. And I don't think we have any choice. Whoever comes to power at the next head of the next government of Kenya will have to start cutting back on what government ambitions of financing. You start with what you have to budget. You don't start with what you desire. Budget there and start looking for the money to fill your desire. And that's a model that cannot be sustained in the long run. However much you say the debt is necessary, sometimes it is. A balance of payment support is extremely necessary. People are protesting against government borrowing money from IMF recently. The consequence of that money not coming will have been a major run on the Kenya shilling. And if you wipe out the shilling, you wipe out savings, you wipe out pensions, the consequences are very, very traumatic. But I think it is also adult responsibility that while we are looking for the mechanics short term to get reassurances of retiring expensive debt, we must start cutting our ambitions of budgetary activity closer to our means, our abilities, not just unlimited desire to see that we are growing, therefore we have a big budget as a country. Thank you. I don't know if there is something I haven't touched.
Let's appreciate him once again. Ever spot on, and you can see in his speech there are no dead moments. That means he's alert 100%. Thank you. At this time, guest of honor, sir, Vice Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to maybe just give a chance for 1 or 2 comments. Just comments, not questions for him. Any questions from the floor? Any questions that are online, technical team? Any chats online? We are good to go. Guest of honor, sir, with your permission, allow me to invite Dr. Nelly Masai, a geographer, to step forward to the podium and move a vote of thanks. What you've done.
Our guest of honor, Dr. Mugisa Kitui, we as Kibabii University, we are very much grateful that you've taken your time to come and share with us a lot of knowledge, a lot of skills that probably would not have gotten it anywhere. Especially you coming amidst your busy schedule. We are very grateful. In your discussion, I personally, I have not just learned about COVID, but I've learned so much, including I need to unlearn what is unnecessary and decide to learn what I need at such a time. And then apart from that, I have also learned that I need to choose a leader and not a politician. And then there is the importance of self-improvement. Now, you have also enlightened us on the concept of whatever we do, we need to think about sustainability. So just to mention the last one that I have captured, you have actually opened our eyes. And just like you had, I am a geographer, I've just been thinking about now this COVID and biodiversity. When the people leave the urban centers and come to the village, how does that affect our forests and all that? So in brief, I would just want to say thank you very much for taking your time to come here and share a lot of knowledge with us. You are always welcome to Kibabii. Come once, come twice, and just come many times as possible. Thank you very much, and may God bless you.
Let us appreciate Dr. Kitui in a better way. In a more fashionable way. Can we do that in a more fashionable way? Let's just warm our hands. We warm our hands And the one finger in your thumb, in your palm. 1, we can't hear anything yet. 2 and more vigorously. So 3, 4, 5. Thank you. We're going to have some announcements. May I invite Professor Mutua, CVPRI. He has some announcements to make. And please, let's kindly keep time. Because we are online, we have to keep time. Thank you. Professor Mutua, please.
Thank you very much, MC Dr. Gol. Thank you, chief guests, for the nice words. I just want to say that we want to have a slight change in terms of timing. Our Professor Kamarongo, who is coming next after our health break, has requested that we start at exactly 11:45. So I want to request all of us, those who are online, that we have a short health break, but exactly at 11:40, we log in so that by 11:45, the professor will start the talk. He's our guest speaker on a sub-theme that is on universal healthcare. So members, kindly keep time because we are all online. And we'll have Professor Msoso will be taking over from that is after the health break. So with that, it's almost 1:30. So we have about 10 minutes to take our health break. Then 10 to or 11:40, let's all be logged in so that we can have the next speaker. With that, colleagues, let's allow the chief guest, the vice chancellor and the DBs to go out, and then the rest of us will have our health break within, and thereafter we log in. Thank you very much. Thanks, MC.
Thank you, Professor Mutua. Once again, we want to remind our audience, both here and those who are online, to keep time. It is about 26 minutes past 11. So let's take a break of 10 minutes. And at exactly 20 minutes to noon, let us all log in, let us all be back so that we can continue with our proceedings. Now, technical team, do you have a number for us, technical team, as we go first for our health break?